looking back, I mean, freedom is just the best thing you can possibly buy with your money. And I didn't have that goal until just a couple of years ago. But man, if a 20 or 30-year-old can realize that freedom is the goal, I mean, once you get to a point where the only way you go to work is if you want to go, not because someone else is telling you to go, it's just a totally different mindset.
You're listening to the Millionaires Unveiled podcast, where you'll hear the stories and interviews of everyday millionaires. We'll unveil their decisions, their strategies, and their current portfolio allocation. Now to your hosts, Clark Sheffield and Jace Mattinson.
Welcome back to another episode of the Millionaires Unveiled podcast. This is episode number 194. Clark, how's it going? What's going on in your world?
Doing well. How about you? Any big news on your end?
No, not a ton, man. Just excited we got the Olympics coming up here soon, NBA Finals going on. There's a lot of great golf and tennis. I love summer,
NBA
man.
Finals with two teams that haven't been in. Has Milwaukee ever been in?
Yeah, but I think it's been like 40 or 50 years.
In the 90s.
Yeah. It's been a while.
I like that. Good to see a change of face.
Totally. You know this, but prior listeners, we recently got acquired, and I went through something on a personal financial level that was something I had never experienced before, and I don't think I've ever talked to anybody that experienced before, so I thought I'd kind of bring it up. I had a self-directed option in our 401k plan with the company, and so I had taken advantage of that through TD Ameritrade. Our company was with Vanguard, and we had that option. And so I took advantage of that. However, the parent company that's acquiring us in a stock sale, they do not have that option. So I had to go through this interesting process that basically had to liquidate everything that I had owned in that self-directed account, convert it all to cash, and then move it into essentially another fund under the Vanguard umbrella as part of the fund options prior to our 401k plan moving over. So it wasn't super difficult, but the mechanic of it were a little bit tricky, and obviously something that I hadn't come across myself or anybody that I had known, and probably not super common for people to do in terms of stock sales and 401k plans being drastically different from self-directed option to not having one. Especially because usually a company that's larger is acquiring somebody who's smaller. It wasn't my case. But their 401k plan was wasn't built similar to ours in that regard. So just thought I'd kind of bring that up. And, it's a little interesting thing to go through. I'm sure, especially in this day and age, it seems like there's a lot of M&A activity out there in general. And sometimes these things, may or may not be in your control, but they do affect you and do affect your personal finance, what you have in your 401k plans.
Well, and a lot of that just takes so much time to figure out, to go through everything and weed through it and see how to do it, and forms to fill out and online stuff to fill out, et cetera, et cetera. It just takes a long time to do some of those things, even if it's not overly difficult.
Yeah, totally. So anyway, this week we've got Greg on our show. He's debt free. They've got 4 kids. He's just over, I think he said he's in his early 40s. He's got a net worth of 1.9 million. We did have a recent listener write in about trying to get some context around ages, and we do try to do a little bit better on doing that, but sometimes people don't want to disclose, or we don't particularly ask that. But we are trying to do a little bit better job of giving some context around life stage and how that relates to investment decisions and approach and whatnot. He's debt free. He's got paid for home, $350,000. He's got several $100,000 in traditional and Roth IRAs between he and his wife, and then also some retirement accounts, 401ks and traditional. They're both working part time now. We get into that and how he made that decision and how his wife did as well. Last week's episode, we had Brian. He's an entrepreneur, business owner, and CEO of Green Pal. His net worth over $4 million. He's got $3 million of it just in paid for real estate, all single family rentals, and about $300K in the market, and the rest in his business. Once again, if you'd like to engage with a millionaire online, go to our website, www.millionairesunveiled.com. Or you also can submit a question to Ask a Millionaire. We've got a couple of those that we'll be playing here shortly on some episodes. Super excited for some of those and getting some more context from some of our listener questions. We can play the voice and whatnot with a little speak pipe thing that we've got on our website. Also, if you're interested in being on the show, send us an email, millionairesunveiled@gmail.com. We've also had several of you write in recently about some real estate opportunities. We've got a few more of those coming in the pipeline. So if you're interested in those, let us know, and we'll get on a call and kind of walk you through the process and get to the details of those. We all appreciate you tuning in to the podcast week after week. If you enjoy the show, we'd appreciate you leaving a 5-star review on either iTunes or Stitcher. It helps us continue to grow the show and continue to bring valuable content to you from millionaires from all walks of life, something that Clark and I are definitely trying to do. Without any further delay, let's get into the episode with Greg.
Hey, Greg, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you guys. I'm excited to be on your show.
Yeah, we're excited to have you. So give us just a little intro about who Greg is, a little elevator pitch for you.
Sure. Well, my wife and I are 42 and 43. We live in Richmond, Virginia. We have 4 kids, 3 in elementary school and 1 in middle school. My wife went part-time about 8 years ago when our 3rd child was born, and I went part-time almost exactly 1 year ago. Kind of our background is that we were very fortunate to be given Dave Ramsey's Total Money Makeover book in our first year of marriage about 18 years ago. At that point, we had just bought a new house. We had 2 newer cars. We were using credit cards and debt to buy furniture, and we're a little out of control. And after reading that book, we realized that we were doing everything wrong and really needed to turn things around. So shortly after that, we moved from Pennsylvania to where we are now to Virginia, and we got totally out of debt. We built our current house that we're in, and we were very adamant that we would get a 15-year mortgage on it. We worked very hard to pay that off as quick as we could. It took us about 7 years. And so for the last 8 years now, we have been completely debt-free. We don't owe anyone a dime. And I really kind of credit that to the financial position we're in now.
Wow, great. So first of all, congrats on your success and lots to discuss here. And you actually sent us your call you went on Dave Ramsey how many years ago? Went on Dave
That's
Ramsey
right.
And did a debt-free screen.
Yeah, that would have been about 8 years ago now.
Wow, well, good for you guys. So jumping back here, just big picture, we'll start with the numbers and then go into your story. So net worth-wise, what's your net worth?
It's just under $2 million, about 1.9.
Okay. And how is it broken up?
So in our current 401ks, we have about $630,000. In traditional IRAs, we have about $320,000. We have Roth IRAs that are about $310,000 combined. We have a brokerage account and then some college accounts, and those are about $250,000 combined. Our home is worth about $350,000, and we probably have $40,000 or $50,000 between our checking and savings accounts. As I said, we don't have any debt, and other than the cash, of course, every penny that's invested is in either S&P 500 index funds or total stock market index funds.
Okay, that was going to be my next question. So no single stocks and no mutual funds, mostly just index funds.
All index funds, no bonds and no stocks.
Okay, and then in the index. No individual stocks. Okay, gotcha. And then in the index funds, are you mostly domestic, international, total stock market?
Yeah, all probably half total stock market and half S&P 500.
Okay, so VTSAX and large cap mainly. Neat.
That's right.
So let's just back up here. Oh, real estate. You don't just your primary home, right? You said 350 in home equity. Any other real estate?
No other real estate.
And then in your 529, is it a 529 account for your college savings?
Yeah, oddly enough, we have 3 529 accounts and 1 ESA. So I'm not sure if we like one kid better or worse than that's just how we have them set up.
And how much do you have in that?
Yeah, maybe 100,000 in college, and then the other 150,000. I mentioned 250, maybe the other 150,000 just in our taxable brokerage account.
Okay, awesome. And has this allocation remained the same over the last 10, 15, 20 years, or has it continually shifted?
It's a little bit. When we started out, we started out years ago with Roth IRAs using an investment advisor, and she had us in mutual funds. And then we had I would play with some single stocks. And over the years, just through reading and listening to podcasts, I've completely switched everything only into index funds.
Okay, awesome. So let's jump back in your story here, because I know we obviously mentioned a couple times here Dave Ramsey and the debt-free scream, and you wrote to us initially that when you first got married, financially you weren't quite there, right?
Yeah,
so
not at all.
How did this all get started?
Yeah, my mother-in-law gave us a book shortly after we were married. I remember setting it on a shelf and thinking that I definitely didn't need a finance book. It just wasn't really what I was into. And for whatever reason, a couple months later, I picked it up and read the whole thing and thought, oh my goodness, we're doing everything wrong, and asked my wife to read it, and she totally agreed. So it was really just that Dave Ramsey's Total Money Makeover book that made so much sense. And, I've personally been interested in personal finance ever since.
And so where were you at that moment? What debt did you have?
So we were just married, and we had a house that we just built. We had a couple new cars. And so we probably had $60,000 in debt with a little bit of student loans, some credit cards, cars. And, we were probably even on equity in our home. We probably didn't have any equity in our home at that point.
So I just want to read, this goes right along with what we're talking about here. I just want to read a sentence that you wrote in our initial email. It says, "My wife and I started out our marriage 18 years ago completely wrong financially. Then we were given Dave Ramsey's Total Money Makeover book and did a financial 180. We have been debt-free, including our home mortgage, over 8 years." So awesome. And you actually paid off your home, right? And you had a 15-year mortgage. I think we'll get to that and why you did a 15 versus a 30, but you paid off the home in what, 7 years, right?
Yeah.
How long until you were totally debt-free from when you read that book?
Sure. So after we read that book, it took us probably 6 months to a year to get rid of all our debt. And, and we had sold the house in Pennsylvania and moved. So, when we moved here to Virginia, we had zero debt, and we built a home and took the 15-year mortgage on it.
Okay. And say it again on the cars. Did you not have car loans or the student loans? Did you pay those off?
Yeah. So we had car and just a little bit of student loans. And after we read that book 18 years ago, it probably took us about 6 to 9 months to maybe almost a year to pay the 50 to 60,000 in debt off.
Wow, that's incredible. And what was your income around at that time?
Gosh, so when we first graduated college, we were probably making 80,000 combined. And over the years, it's probably gotten up as high as 200 when we were both working full time, and it's lower than that now, of course. So thinking back, it may have taken us a year and a half to pay off that initial auto debt we had.
So did you make other decisions, Greg, after you read the Total Money Makeover? Obviously, you went gung-ho or gazelle intense, as Dave Ramsey says, on the debt. Did you sell a bunch of stuff? Did you downsize? Did you cut up credit cards? Did you make other decisions besides paying off the debt?
Yeah, we really followed his book, followed all the steps. We cut up all our credit cards. We bought term life insurance. We did sell a car when we moved to Richmond. We were both commuting, working on the same road on the other side of town. So we sold one of our cars and went down to one for about 9 months. And yeah, we made lots of changes.
Wow, I mean, an amazing story. So you paid off how much in total if you aggregate all of those? We
purchased our home, 16 years ago for $240,000, and we were debt free at that time, and it took about 7.5 years to pay that off. So everything all combined was approaching $300,000.
Wow, that's incredible. You did it super fast. It's amazing. Did you take trips at all during that time, or spend, or vacations, or anything, or you just go all at it?
Yeah, once we got rid of all our consumer debt and we're on a 15-year mortgage, we were definitely, we definitely tried to enjoy life. But our number one priority was paying off our home. we still went on, modest vacations and, and did things and went out to eat. But we've definitely been on a budget. And again, our number one priority was paying off the home.
Yeah. Well, congrats. So let's jump over and talk about this mortgage. So you said you really wanted it to be a goal and you wanted to make sure you had a 15-year, right, versus a 30. Why is that?
I hate to say that just because Dave Ramsey recommended it, but that's really the reason we did it. I just didn't want to have it very long. I just, after starting to read more, personal finance books, I just got the dream of not owing anybody, anything ever again. I just felt like that it would be extremely freeing and give us confidence and help us make better decisions. We were both just on the same page and both agreed that we didn't want to be strapped down, to a mortgage the rest of our lives.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. When you sent over your debt-free screen with Dave Ramsey, I listened to it, and you told him that, right? You said, hey, I got a 15-year, but we paid it off in 7. And even he was surprised at that, right? He was like, oh, You got a 15-year, but you paid it down in 7. Like, wow, you guys are crazy.
And we were really focused. So when we did receive bonuses or, money that we weren't planning on getting, it really just went all on the mortgage.
Yeah. So then you get out of debt. Did your lifestyle change? Did you start spending more, or at that point had you been just spending a certain amount up to then and you didn't really have any lifestyle creep?
Yeah, it definitely, our lifestyle has definitely creeped over the years. We pay attention to it, but yeah, we definitely loosened up once we paid off the house, and we've loosened up even more in the last couple of years as we've seen our net worth climb. But yeah, we've always tried to stay on a budget and watch what we're doing.
Did you feel like during this whole time when you were paying off debt, and even I guess up until now, did you feel like you were saying no a lot? Or were you pretty much living life as you wanted to and doing what you wanted to do?
No. Yeah. Especially in the beginning, especially the first couple of years after we bought our house, I did feel like we said no probably too much, as, maybe friends asked. Maybe a group of friends is going out to dinner and we didn't go, or a group of friends is going on a trip and we didn't go, or, just not going out to eat as much as we wanted to, or stuff like that. But at the same time, we had money set aside to do those things. And so, we did them in moderation. I think we've always told ourselves no to some extent, and I think we will always have to. I mean, there's been many times when we've wanted to upgrade our house. We see the house.
Of course.
We have 4 kids and we have a 4-bedroom, 3-bath house, and we see the 6-bedroom houses out there that we could easily add 100 or 200,000 to our house and instantly be in a house twice our size. And I'm not saying we won't do that someday, but we've really tried to stay content and to stay where we're at so that we don't get out of control.
Yeah. Do you regret that at all, or do you feel like it just wasn't that big of a deal and that's what you wanted to focus on, and now you're worth $2 million, right? And now you can really do whatever you want, right?
Yeah. For that reason, I don't regret it at all. I don't regret living on a budget and staying in control.
How did you stay focused, Greg, throughout this whole thing? Or not really focused, I guess, more determined and motivated, right? Because you guys went pretty crazy at it in a good way. I mean that as a compliment, for 8 to 10 years, right? 7 to 8 years. So did you ever get discouraged along the way? And I mean, how did you stay motivated?
Yeah, it's funny. I think the way we stayed motivated is my wife and I just continued to talk and communicate about all the things we were going to do someday when we didn't owe anyone money. And funny enough, we would always talk about, the fancy cars we were going to buy, or the lake house we were going to have, or the fancy vacations we were going to go on. And oddly enough, we really haven't done any of that. Besides, we do go on a lot of vacations and weekend trips, but, and I'm not saying we won't do that stuff someday, but I mean, we're car people, and we have a very modest family car, and I don't know. We used to dream and talk about that stuff a lot, and I think that was enough to keep us motivated and to keep us going. And we still talk and dream about that stuff,
So why don't you turn it on now, Greg? Is it hard? And I don't mean that rudely at all, because I think you and 98% of our millionaires are the same way, right? They live a pretty frugal life, and they say, all right, maybe I'll spend more or do this when I'm retired or semi-retired or get out of debt or have a certain amount of money or whatever that milestone is. They hit that milestone, and then it's harder to pick up and do those things, right? Because they've lived for the last 20 years not doing it.
Yeah, it really is. What we have decided is important to us are trips and vacations. And we've been doing that, and we are planning on doing stuff in the future. What kind of happened 2 years ago when I went part-time is, I had always been driven to save and invest as much as possible, thinking that I would work full-time up until I was 65, and then I would have this huge pile of money, and, I would go just spend it on anything I wanted. About a year and a half ago, I just started having a tough time at work, having a lot of anxiety and stress, and just our department had a lot of changes going on. And about that time, my brother had sent me a Mr. Money Mustache article about the FIRE movement, and I started reading that, and reading a lot more about contentment. And I just started thinking, man, this is what we've been doing living this way for 20 years, is so that if we want, we don't have to work a job we hate, and prior to that, I really enjoyed my job. And then just with everything going on, I started hating it, and, just really didn't want to go anymore. And reading the FIRE movement and about the 4% safe withdrawal rate. And I just began to think, why am I going to a job I hate when there's no reason at all I have to? And, my wife and I kind of looked at it and looked at health insurance and all the things that would change. And we realized that, with our part-time incomes and with, doing some side hustle stuff, we would easily be able to make enough to pay for our living expenses and still invest some money.
So let's talk about that a little bit. How did you make the decision to leave work versus just change jobs?
Yeah, our schedule at work was changing. People were leaving the department, and they wouldn't replace them. They would, just kind of pass the work around. And we were in a retail environment, so our schedule kept getting worse and worse. We were working more and more weekends. And I just started hating the fact that I was being told to go in on a Saturday when my kids were, playing soccer, or be there because we were busy on an evening when my family was doing something else. And I don't know what happened, but I just got tired of someone else telling me where to be and how long to be there. And I got it in my head that I'm not going to work a traditional 50 hour career ever again. I'm going to try to do always something part-time and something that's on my terms, and, that works for my schedule, when I want to be there and how long I want to be there.
So how old were you at this point, and what was your net worth?
Yeah, this was just a year ago. I was 42, and it probably gone up a couple 100,000 over.
Yeah. Okay. So you were 1.7 or something, right?
Yeah.
At that point. And how much do you guys spend a year annually, give or take?
We probably, with giving and investing, we probably spend 90 or 100,000.
So if you go by the 4% withdrawal rule, it's about 70 grand a year, right? So you're spending more than that. But on the flip side, you said you and your wife are both working a couple days, and so you have that income and the side hustles, right, to help supplement it.
Correct. So we're not withdrawing at all. And that's our goal for the next 20 or so years until we reach traditional retirement age. Our goal is not to withdraw from any of our investments. In fact, we want to keep adding to them if we can. Our primary goal is to make enough with part-time work to pay for our living expenses. And then, if we can invest some, we can, but we don't want to withdraw. That could change, but that's
the goal. Yeah. Yeah, sure. So between the two of you working right now, that means you're making about 90 to 100. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We'll probably make about 100 this year.
Yeah. And as much as you're comfortable sharing here, I know we talked a little bit before about it. What are you guys doing for income or side hustles now?
Sure. My wife has always been in finance and IT. Again, she works 2 days a week. She does really well. I had to leave I didn't have to, but I left my career position and I took kind of an entry level position at the same company, but in a different department. And together we'll probably make about 80. And then I buy and sell cars on the side. And we'll probably make about 20K doing that as well.
Wow, neat. So when you left your position but stayed with the same company in a different department and went down from 5 or 6 days a week, right? If you start including that Saturday work to 2 days a week, did people at your company think you're crazy?
I think they did. No one told me that to my face, but I really think they did, and I think they probably still do.
You're like, what's going on? This guy's 40 years old, quitting his job.
It is fun to sneak back into the department that I used to manage on. I typically work Tuesday, Wednesdays, and on Wednesday I'll just sneak in and tell them to have a good weekend, and that is pretty fun. I don't know what they say behind my back, but and I don't tell them a whole lot other than my wife and I we've invested a lot over the years and been frugal, and
sure,
I'm not gonna work full time right now.
Yeah. So to that end of your 1.9 or 2-ish, right, where you're at net worth, about 1.2, correct me if I'm wrong, but about 1.2 is in retirement accounts, right? Between 401ks and Roth and traditional IRAs.
That's correct.
So how did you build that up so quickly? Were you guys pretty tenacious and contributing to it every year and in all aspects?
Yeah, we maxed out our Roth IRAs almost every year for the last 15 years or so. If we either maxed out 401ks or put a big amount into them, we've always had good company matches. Thankfully, yeah, we just kind of set it and forget it. I think a lot of months we were probably investing $4,500 a month or so between the different investments.
Yeah. So after you would max out your retirement accounts, whether it's your 401k or your Roths, you would just put it into non-retirement accounts, just a traditional brokerage account. Is that right?
Correct. Yep.
Or throw it towards the house, I guess, right? For those initial 8 years when you were paying it off.
Yeah. For those 7 years, everything we were investing some in our, we were maxing out our Roths and we were investing some in our 401ks, and then everything else we would throw at the house for those 7 years.
Yeah. How old were you when you became a millionaire?
I was 39. So we've really had two big financial goals in our life. The first one was to pay off our house. The second was, and it was more my goal than my wife's, but I really wanted to be a millionaire in my 30s. And so, yeah, it was at some point when I was 39. And then the second million has come pretty quick, just in a couple of years.
Yeah, it's amazing. And congrats. I mean, obviously really young, in your 30s, right, to hit that. Well, do you have any financial goals now?
We don't have any net worth goals. The biggest financial goal we have now is to not withdraw from our investments until we're more at a typical retirement age of 62 or 65. Really, the goal is to just do part-time work that we love, again, on our terms, when we want to do it, and and hopefully make enough to live on and invest some. We've definitely changed our attitude. Again, for 18 years, I was all about saving and investing, and I'm really trying to be more about living now.
So with that shift, right, from saving to investing to living and quitting the job and going down to 2 days per week, how do you feel? I mean, are you glad you did it? If someone's thinking about doing that, I mean, what's your take on it? How has it been?
Well, I'll tell you great is the answer, but going from working 5 days off 2 to working 2 days off 5, you just have to try it. But it's a great switch, I'll tell you.
You get bored at all?
No, not really. I mean, this was supposed to be the year where all 4 kids were at school all day, and now they're all home doing online school. So I don't think there's any way to get bored there.
Yeah, true. You're supposed to have all this time, and now you don't.
That's right. I really enjoy hiking, mountain biking, kayaking, everything outside. The first project I did a couple months after I left full-time work was I built an outdoor office. That's where I'm sitting at right now. And it's about 120 square feet in my backyard, right? That my wife will usually work out of one day a week. And one while a kid will, do online school out here. So that was a lot of fun. That took up a lot of time. And I'm actually helping a friend build one right now. Yeah, I mean, I guess I could be bored at some point, but it hasn't really been a problem yet.
No, that's great. Not saying you have to be, just asking, That's awesome. I'm glad you're not. So just wrapping up here, Greg, if someone wants to do what you did, they're young. I mean, at what age did you come across this Total Money Makeover book? How old were you?
Let's see. We would have been about 26 or 27.
Okay, so you were starting your career or a few years in.
Right.
You received this book. You're in debt, or at least some of debt, and you say, "Okay, I want to get out of here, and I want to get out of it. I want to change my situation." Now, less than 20 years later, right, 15, 17 years or so, you have a net worth of $2 million. You have no debt, paid for a home, $1.2 million in retirement accounts. You guys are working part time. What's your advice to somebody? How did you do it?
I guess you really just have to dream, and if you're married, talk about it openly with your spouse. And, if at all possible, you need to be on the same page as your spouse. You're not going to do it alone. I guess that's my advice. And, once you come up with a plan, stick with it. Don't give up.
Yeah.
I think looking back, I mean, freedom is just the best thing you can possibly buy with your money. And I didn't have that goal until just a couple of years ago. But man, if a 20 or 30-year-old can realize that freedom is the goal, I mean, once you get to a point where, the only way you go to work is if you want to go, not because someone else is telling you to go. It's just a totally different mindset.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. Any mistakes you made? Anything you could pinpoint and say, that was a big mistake, or I wish I would have done that differently?
Yeah, I think when we first started investing, we used a financial advisor, and she started Roth IRAs for us. And what I never felt comfortable with is that a 6% load was, front end load was coming off everything that we put in. And when I started thinking about a goal of making 9 or 10% return, but yet 6% of everything I put in was going toward fees, that just never sat right with me. And so, we invested with her for probably a couple of years, and then I switched everything over just to an E-Trade account. So we have our Roth IRAs just set up in E-Trade, and again, it's all in index funds now. The other mistake I think is I used to mess around trying to pick mutual funds and individual stocks, and I would look for mutual funds with the highest 10-year returns, and so I was probably buying high. And now I think with index funds that have zero fees, almost zero fees, and I'm very comfortable owning the market, and I'm not trying to time anything. And so, I think those were some mistakes early on, not that they were devastating by any means, but
sure.
Things I would do different now. And a few of the people that I mentor, I definitely steer them toward that same direction.
Yeah, and you're right on the low fees. It's amazing, right? I know I use Fidelity, so I'm sure Vanguard has something similar, or Charles Schwab or TD, or all these different brokerage accounts. But Fidelity has, I think, 4 zero index funds now: international, large cap, small cap, and I think the fourth is a total market. I might be wrong on that fourth one, but yeah, they have a zero fee index funds now that they launched, I believe, a couple of years ago. So pretty amazing how cheap it is. And they took away their limits. I remember years ago looking, and in a lot of these mutual and index funds, they had $2,500 limits, at least through Fidelity. Vanguard's may be different, but they've taken most of that away now.
Sure.
So it's significantly easier to get in. So just want to wrap up here, Greg, with some rapid fire questions, and then we'll close up. So what's been the most expensive car you've ever purchased?
The most expensive car that I bought for myself, or my wife, has probably been about $22,000. And, the family vehicle we have now is a 08 GMC Yukon XL with maybe 125,000 miles on it, and it's probably worth around 11 or 12 grand. And don't tell my wife, but she could probably drive any car she wants, but we're pretty content with reliable vehicles with good options. And I'm always looking for a deal to flip, so I'm always driving something different. But I like to drive 4Runners, Tundras, Wranglers when I find a good deal on them. But they're usually at least 10 years old and 100,000 miles on them.
Yeah, well, I may give you a call here in the next year or two when I buy a car.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can help me out. So what's worth the money on to you, and what's not worth spending money on to you?
I think definitely time with family, whether it's eating out or going on vacations, trips to the beach, rental homes, renting houses at the lake or beach, whatever. I think that's definitely worth it for us. I mean, maybe similar to the last question, expensive new cars, even though we're car people for sure, that's just not, we'd rather see our money in the market growing than in the driveway going down in value.
Sure. Tech tools and websites or books, podcasts, anything that's been super helpful that you'd recommend along your journey here?
Yeah, for sure. And these have probably all been mentioned on your show. But my 4 favorite personal finance books are The Millionaire Next Door by Thomas Stanley, The Total Money Makeover by Dave Ramsey, The Simple Path to Wealth by J.L. Collins, and Your Money or Your Life by Vicki Robbins. As far as fire podcasts or blogs, I really like Mr. Money Mustache, Choose FI, and Mad Fientist.
Awesome. So just in closing here, Greg, what does it mean to be happy or fulfilled to you? And has this money brought that along the way? And maybe couple that question with what's motivated you on this journey? I think more recently you said it's freedom. But what's the deeper cause here psychologically? What motivated you to become wealthy, to get out of debt? And are you happier because of it?
Yeah, it's kind of a combination of freedom and I guess dreaming about the things money can buy. At first it was, we didn't want to be in debt to anyone, not only because we'd be free and have less stress and more confidence, but we wanted to then in turn be able to buy fancy things. And I think once we got the freedom and the confidence, then the fancy things weren't as important to us. I don't think anything we own, our material stuff, I don't think it's making us happy, but certainly I guess the word freedom, the freedom and the confidence that it gives us.
The security too, right? The
security, the peace, the ability to do what we want kind of when we want it. I think that definitely brings happiness.
Sure. Well, it's an amazing story and you've done an amazing job. So congrats to you and your wife, your family on getting out of debt, paying off that home so quickly, 7 years, right? It's incredible. And having a net worth of $2 million and growing, right? And total freedom now. So congrats on your success and thanks for coming on. Thanks for sharing your story, everybody. That's Greg, net worth of $1.9 million. Thanks so much, Greg.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for listening to the Millionaires Unveiled podcast with Clark Sheffield and Chase Mattinson. For more stories, investment opportunities, and information, check out our website at millionairesunveiled.com. See you next time when you'll hear from another everyday millionaire.